Today we're going to cover a bunch of sleeper wide receivers so you can grab them in the middle, the late rounds of your fantasy drafts. Pick your favorite ones. Identify which ones you want to get just in case you went running back early. You pounded running back. Now you got to grab some wide receivers on the back end of your draft to really have a good roster. But we're going to identify these wide receivers that could break out or give you stable production. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're looking at players every day. We're looking at draft strategies every day. I'm helping you build your dynasty teams every day. Click that button. Stop missing out. Here we go. Our first wide receiver coming off the board, and we're going to do this pretty fast today. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver 44, round 7, ADP per underdog. So you might be a little bit cheaper in your home league draft due to that. That being said, we're seeing upside for days out of this guy because Trevor Lawrence wants to push it downfield. He has 4.3 speed, first round pick, big time ADOT coming out of LSU, getting those deep targets. Deep targets means at least if he's on the field running routes, he could give you splash play potential, giving you those big games, providing you big fantasy performances. Brian Thomas could be a player that just breaks out and becomes a top wide receiver in this offense. Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 50 in ADP. Why is he important? Because last year, during the season, every week we talked about him on the waiver wire as a potential pickup. He had some games where he was productive last year, and on top of that, he can get you yards after the catch. He's going to hover around the line of scrimmage to the intermediate part of the field, soak up those shorter targets, get yards after the catch, while the other wide receivers are going to push it downfield with Josh Allen. So he's going to get some of those targets that's going to allow him to rack up catches and rack up yards after the catch. Troy Franklin, wide receiver 77, big time prospect in the 2024 NFL Draft. Walking into a depth chart where it's very ambiguous, could be seeing some opportunity down the line. I would look at him more of a guy you're probably going to be picking up off waivers somewhere. Keon Coleman's another wide receiver looking at. He's got round 7 ADP per underdog. You're going to catch him cheaper than that probably in your home league drafts due to him being a rookie. But he's going to get deep balls. He's going to get pushed downfield, which means if he brings any of those in from time to time, means he can give you big play potential in fantasy. If he's on the field running routes, which he should be. This is a very open depth chart at the wide receiver position. He should earn a role rather quickly with this team. Should be on the field running routes. At the very least, should be a guy giving you splash play potential, but could be a big thing. Jackson Smith-Njigba. If you told me there was a rookie wide receiver racking up 60 catches, 600 yards, I'd be excited about that. But the market's kind of low on him. Look for him to get more opportunities this year. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver 44 in ADP, getting round 7 draft capital. Thing about him is he should get over a 20% target share easy here in Carolina. Should get you at least similar production, which you saw last year. 11.7 points per game, but that's with some big down games. But some wide receiver 1 weeks, a lot of wide receiver 2 weeks baked in there. Should be a safe asset and especially good for the price tag. Greg Dortch, look for him off waivers in traditional redraft leagues. He's a guy that should be getting some spike weeks here and there because when he's on the field, that's what happens with him. He's a good player, a very good role player for the Cardinals who has a role. Rondale Moore's gone, so those short targets, which goes to Dortch when Moore is usually out, is going to go to him. So he might give you a little bit more consistency. Jalen Tolbert. The thing is, Michael Gallup's gone. We have Brandon Cooks, CeeDee Lamb, of course. But what happens middle of the season when injuries hits or they have to go to the wide receiver 3? They like Jalen Tolbert a lot. And his numbers slowly racking up by the year. G5 prospect coming out of college. Probably needed some ramp-up time. Tolbert's a guy to pay attention to off the waiver wire. Jalen Polk, wide receiver 64, round 12 draft capital, has some upside with that speed, sticky hands, has some production to his name, was productive last year at Washington, and at the draft price here, you're catching a wide receiver that could surprise you and turn and burn on your fantasy roster. Jameson Williams, wide receiver 45, ADP here, and he's a guy with a lot of upside, a lot of speed to burn. Could be seeing some deep targets, and if those deep targets come to fruition here, starts getting more volume, then we could see him crack his upside. If not, you could always release him to the waiver wire. Marquise Hollywood Brown, round 5 draft capital. We got speed for days here, and now we're with Patrick Mahomes. We're a nuanced route runner. I look for him to be steady in this offense for fantasy production. I like him at the price tag here because the wide receiver pool is starting to thin out. Josh Palmer, round 9 draft capital on Underdog. That being said, super cheap, should be getting good volume in this offense. Him and Ladd McConkey are going to be the leaders of this wide receiver depth chart. Look for DJ Chark to earn more of a role during training camp as long as he stays healthy. But Josh Palmer is a great value if you're hammering wide receivers. Javon Baker, another upside play if you want to pull the trigger there. Probably going to see him on waivers this year. You may be watching him throughout the season. Marvin Mims, deep ball dandy, splash play guy who's going to see a good ADOT. He's going to see deep targets. He can bring one in on any game, and that could be a splash performance. A lot of games that's not going to happen. We also got Bo Nix and Zach Wilson. I don't know how you feel about that. But again, Marvin Mims might get some of those Jerry Jeudy targets. Ladd McConkey, drafted high in the 2nd round, has a lot of upside, 4.3 speed, great route runner. He will be on the field this year. He will soak up some targets, getting a good price here when we're looking at it with round 6 draft capital, not round 16, what it says, round 6. Wide receiver 42 off the board here. That's a good price if you're shooting for upside. Demarcus Robinson, wide receiver 74, round 15. You're looking at him off waivers. If you start seeing some volume in this offense, go ahead and pick him up. Watch him week to week, which we will be doing that for you. As long as you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned in, we'll look at the waiver wire wide receivers every single day for you. But there was a run last year, and that could happen again if something happens to Puka and Kupp, or he earns more of that wide receiver 3 role. Adam Thielen, wide receiver 72, round 14 ADP. Look at the back end of the season because he's going to have to compete with Deontay Johnson. If you caught a wide receiver like that off waivers, you're kind of happy. You're probably going to look at him off waivers or with one of your last picks. If you're hurting at wide receiver and you're looking at for something that could be steady, maybe some upside performances, I look for this offense to have a little bit more volume to it in the passing game. I look for that to happen. I look for Adam Thielen to give you something like we saw from weeks 8 to 18. And for the price tag of round 14, wide receiver 72, that's something you might be interested in. Darnell Mooney, he's an upside dandy here because Drake London and Kyle Pitts should be soaking up the targets, but he's got speed to burn. And the targets are going to flow his way in the right matchups. And he's a guy you can play the matchups with down the line at a great price. Gabe Davis, he is a splash week dandy. Look at the chart below me, and it's like that every year. Now we're back with another team here, even though we were with the Bills last year, that likes to push it downfield. Trevor Lawrence, top 5, and pushing it downfield due to his ADOT, average depth of targets. 10.1 PPR points per game last year, and Gabe Davis had an ADOT of almost 15. Look for him to get deep balls. So if he brings 1 or 2 in any game, that could be a game or performance that could win your fantasy matchup that week. Jahan Dotson, wide receiver 65, round 12, a good talent. Curtis Samuel is gone. You're going to catch him deep in drafts. Could be a guy to pick up as a what-the-heck draft pick if you're looking for wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver 61. There's competition here, but they also picked him up to be a dude for them. A guy soaking up targets. He can create separation. Amari Cooper is a very stable wide receiver, but he has a history of playing with injuries, playing through them. Jerry Jeudy on the other side of that, creating separation with Elijah Moore in the middle. You might see more targets than expected. I had almost a 20% target share last year. Might push for that again this year. At wide receiver 61, round 11 draft capital, maybe you want a wide receiver getting about a 19 to 20% target share at that price. Rashid Shaheed, splash week dandy. Splash week dandy. We got to love those because they can win you weeks. They can lose them for you as well. But if you're playing the matchups, you're hurting at wide receiver, you want a guy like this because you're just plugging them in, you're closing your eyes, and you're hoping you catch one of those green candlesticks or one of those 18-point games because he gets deep balls. He gets targeted deep downfield. You catch 1 or 2 of those in a game, blow up top performance, wide receiver 1 week, and he has the potential to get you 20 fantasy points on any given Sunday. He has the potential to get you 2 fantasy points on any given Sunday. But that's an asset that you may want on your fantasy team on the back end, just in case you experience injuries. But those are about 22 wide receivers that we're looking at as sleepers or mid-round picks, late-round picks, waiver wire gets in fantasy drafts right now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.